Bills Mafia, the Buffalo Bills just built a pass rush that could change everything for our team in 2025. Joey Bosa and Greg Rousseau aren't just a good duo, they might be the next most dangerous edge pairing in the entire NFL. My name's Colin, and this is Crack the Table, all Bills, no breaks. This channel exists to bring you value and perspective as we break down every single thing that's happening in Buffalo football each and every day. If you love the Bills, make sure to hit the like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. It keeps the channel going. But let's get right into the Buffalo pass rush of 2025. You know, a couple of years ago, we signed Von Miller in 2022, and the vision was clear. He was supposed to come in and be the closer. He was supposed to come in and take us to the ship late in January, early in February, but he had that ACL tear week 12 against the Lions on that Thanksgiving game. And even then, we saw Miller already getting, 8 sacks, 45 pressures, and he was wrecking games and drawing consistent double teams. But the NFL is harsh. The realities of injuries are very, very harsh and often hit more than not. And so even in 2024, when we had Von Miller, he was okay. He had a handful of pressures. He had 6 sacks in 13 games, but he was not the closer that maybe we envisioned even a couple years before that. But on March 9th, we let go Von Miller, released him, saving about $8 million in cap space. But 4 days later, Brandon Beane, our general manager, made a big move. The Bills signed Pro Bowler Joey Bosa to a 1-year, $12.6 million deal up to about $16.5 million with incentives. And the NFL media even said if a healthy and energized version of Bosa emerges in 2025, the Bills might get the result that they were hoping for when they inked Von Miller 3 years ago. So we've got this pairing going into the Bills defense and the edge play with Greg Rousseau and Joey Bosa going into 2025. Greg Rousseau is kind of the condor, right? He's the prototypical edge. He's a 6'6", freakish athlete. He disrupts passing lanes. He gets his hands up. He controls tackles with his reach. He collapses the pocket with his power. And honestly, for his age, his ceiling can continue to go up. But Joey Bosa on the other side of the defensive line is more of the technician. He's just 30 years old. He's coming off a couple of years of injury, a couple of years of issues, but his hand usage, his first step timing, his counter moves make him dangerous even when he doesn't win with power or speed. In 2021, which was his last full healthy season, he had 15.5 sacks and 68 pressures. We're going to talk about sacks versus pressures in a little bit, but 68 is an amazing number. He's had 4 seasons with double-digit sacks in his career, and he brings that sort of production to Buffalo. If he can stay healthy, we are going to love this defensive line, these edges. But here is, I think, where the issue is for offensive coordinators that we are going to be playing in this upcoming year, in this upcoming season. So when you have Greg Rousseau on one side and he's got his power and he's pushing and he's doing inside counters, Bosa is going to get a clean one-on-one on the outside. But if they turn the corner and they try to double Bosa, Rousseau will use his power, right, to collapse the pocket into the quarterback's lap. And so Gary Davenport from the Bleacher Report said it this way: the Bills finished the 2024 season with just 39 sacks. And so adding adding this technical pass rusher in Joey Bosa was the off-season priority, right? And Joey Bosa, to his own regard, comes in and he says in the press conference, in his first press conference, he says, "I'm locked in this year. I just want to do everything I possibly can to stay healthy, to contribute to this team and be a part of a winning team." Right? We know that. We know that he wants to come in. He wants to use his skill. He wants to use his precision on the edge to get after the quarterback, to make pressures, and to make the quarterbacks make mistakes. I've already alluded to this in that quote, but Buffalo's 39 sacks in 2024 ranked in the bottom half of the league. The Buffalo Bills only had a 20% pass rush rate, which was genuinely below elite. Now pair Rousseau's growth which again, I think he's still an ascending talent. With Bosa's healthy averages, which was 10 sacks and 50 pressures per season, and you're looking at a combined 18 to 23 sacks between the two of them, that would jump our team to a 25% plus pressure rate. And so why does that matter? Why does that 25% threshold really matter? Well, teams since 2010 that have above 25% end up being a top 5 defense at the end of the year most of the time, 90+% of the time. And so the question is can McDermott maximize them together, and can they stay healthy? And how will McDermott maximize them? I think there's two sorts of packages that we're going to see McDermott use throughout this year that's really going to bring a level of excellence and a level of consistency to this, especially on those second and third downs. But the first one is overloads. I think you're going to stack Rousseau, Ed Oliver, and a linebacker on a protection and force a protection slide, ultimately leaving Bosa and ISO on the other side of the line, and he's going to be the technician. He's going to get those pressures. He's going to collapse that pocket just with his skill, just with his precision, with some of his moves. But then the other one I think that we're going to see, which I am so excited to see, is we're going to see a NASCAR front where we kick Russo on the inside. We pair him with Oliver. We pair him with Bosa and AJ Epinesa and even TJ Sanders at times, and maybe the linebacker as well. And as the year goes on, we're going to see these full pass rushers with even just 4 pass rushers on third down, and which is just going to cause so much mayhem and distraction and cause the quarterbacks to make bad decision. But again, this isn't just a thin rotation behind Bosa and Rousseau, right? Acknowledging Sanders, acknowledging Daquan Jones, acknowledging Ed Oliver, and even rookie Landon Jackson coming in for the strong interior. These players are going to be key to causing consistency to take place and to happen so that we can see consistent pressure over the team. And again, there's a difference between the past Buffalo Bills defenses where the front 7 is maybe hunting for the sack here and there and hopefully maybe causing coverage sacks. But this 2025 Bills pass rush is built to win immediately at the line in 2, 3, or at worst 4 seconds, and collapsing the pocket, hopefully under 3 seconds, and forcing quarterbacks of the opposing teams to make bad throws and even to get throws off even before the routes are developed. You know, in the AFC East, we've got Tua in Miami. We've got Fields with the Jets. We've got May in New England, and each have strengths, but none are really comfortable with throwing under duress or throwing under pressure. We want to force discomfort in them every single snap. But I guess the question for you in the comments is which AFC East or which conference quarterback in the AFC are you most worried about? You know, for me, I think it's Drake May. We play, of course, the Patriots twice a year, and we are going to have, I think, a year where we see Drake May take a step forward. And, you know, we love to see a couple of years ago the Patriots fumbling quarterback with Mac Jones. But I think Drake May is an ascending talent, and I think in years to come, this is going to be a guy who we need to watch, where we really need to take into consideration when we're game planning, because he is going to be, I think, a guy with a great arm, and he's mobile. We'll see how their system pans out. They don't quite have that elite receiver. I mean, you could say that Stephon Diggs is, but ultimately, I think he's just getting old, and I don't think he's as polished as he used to be when he was here in Buffalo or even with the Vikings. But what do you think? Which QB in our division or which QB in our conference are you most worried about? And of course, we could all say Mahomes because of the Chiefs, but we'll see. I think we can get after him. But hey, let's chat about some projections here. You know, as I've grown in my love of the game of football over the last handful of seasons, I've realized that stat padding sacks doesn't equate to wins on the field, though we love sacks. We love what they can cause, but dynamic sacks, while they can make the highlight clip and they can get players paid, it doesn't necessarily mean that we're disrupting the game because plays can still happen. So consistency matters. And ultimately, it's not just sacks that matter, it's pressures that matter. Because pressures often lead to bad throws, they often lead to fumbles, and they ultimately lead to bad decision-making on teams, which that will lead to more sacks, more pressures, more turnovers, which leads leads us to have more offensive possessions ourselves, which leads us to make Super Bowls, right? So great edge play is more than just about box score sacks. A QB hit on 2nd and 5 or a QB pressure on 2nd and 5 can easily turn into a 3rd and short or a 3rd and long, which can then on 3rd down with those NASCAR packages, with those overload packages or whatever, defensive scheme McDermott is going to scheme up. It can lead to pressure, forcing a throw a half second early, right into the arms of a safety, which can be a pick six very, very quickly. Extra blockers on the field because of our pass rush will make offenses have fewer routes run because they have less tight ends and less receivers or less running backs on the field. They're gonna have more blockers, shrinking their playbook, which puts the advantage it puts the advantage in our lap. And so while Von Miller brought flashes of this when healthy, I think Bosa and Rousseau, again, assuming health, can bring it every single week. And when January football comes around, there's a difference between teams that are surviving and teams that are advancing. And I think that this pass rush can be consistent enough, especially now with our depth, with Bosa, with Rousseau, deep into the playoffs. And this is going to matter for 2025, right? We know, especially even looking at like the AFC East, like, there's some talent in our division here, but I think that this pass rush, this front seven, could push 25-30% pressure rate on the quarterback, on these offenses consistently, leading us to have more consistent defensive turnovers. This year's Bills front seven has a potential to have a kind of fear factor that ultimately we have not seen since Mario Williams and Jerry Hughes. Back then, 2014, Sac City and Buffalo meant that teams, offensive coordinators had to scheme against our defense. Usually you see offenses scheming against one or two players, but when there's a front seven that has a level of depth in it like ours does, and even some of the cornerback play and safety play that we're going to see, the linebacker play that we're going to see, I think teams are going to have to be scared and worried about our defense. Again, I even just think of, throughout the league, we see these times when these defenses, like the Philadelphia Eagles recently, I'm not a big fan again of Philly, but we see their defense just suffocate offensive lines with the talent and the consistency that they have. There's no reason why we can't do that in Buffalo this year in 2025. Bosa and Rousseau, backed up by a deep rotation, could make Sac City 2.0 a reality. And unlike some of the past seasons where Buffalo leaned on maybe coverage sacks and late pressures, this 2025 season, the personnel we have can collapse the pocket, and it's a blueprint to win against every single quarterback style consistently. So Bills Mafia. The Buffalo Bills now have two legitimate game wreckers, Rousseau and Bosa. The technician's precision and the Condor's reach. Together, they can turn 3rd and manageable into 3rd and impossible, right? Force turnovers and even make the best quarterbacks in the NFL panic. Whether these two finish with 15 sacks, 25 sacks, or 30 sacks, the true impact is going to be measured down the stretch in the playoffs with playoff wins stacked on each other. But hey, my name is Colin, and this is Crack the Table. If you want more all Bills, no breaks breakdowns all season long, hit the like, subscribe, turn on that notification bell, and we're just getting started. Tune in tomorrow for another video. Peace out.